I'd like to welcome you all here this afternoon. I'm Bob Newton. I'm Special Assistant to the President of Boston College, Father Leahy, and I'm also the Interim Director of the Church in the 21st Century Center. Just a little background on the program that we're participating in today. I'd say about 6 or 7 years ago, we had a visit from John Allen, who gave a very interesting talk about what was going on in the Vatican. And he told us that the only thing people know in the Vatican about Boston College is what others tell them, and sometimes they're not always as favorably impressed with Boston College as all of you are. And so that the solution to this was to invite members of the hierarchy to come to Boston College for two purposes. And this is why Cardinal Mahony is here, to learn from Cardinal Mahony how he thinks we, Boston College as a Jesuit and Catholic university, can be of service to the Church. And secondly, to give him some idea of what we're doing here at Boston College to fulfill our mission as a Jesuit and Catholic university. And so Cardinal Mahony, I think he might be, we're probably up to 12 or 15 members of the hierarchy who've come under this Church in the 21st Century program for these two purposes. I'm not going to introduce Cardinal Mahony. I'm going to introduce the person who's going to introduce Cardinal Mahony, who's Catherine Corneille, who's the chairperson of the Boston College Theology Department.
Thank you, Bob. It is indeed my honor to introduce Cardinal Roger Mahony to you this afternoon. Cardinal Mahony is the first native Angelino to serve as Los Angeles Archbishop, having been born in Hollywood and raised in San Fernando Valley. Cardinal Mahony was ordained to the priesthood in 1962. He graduated from the Catholic University of America in 1964 with a master's degree in social work, and he was named Monsignor in February 1967. In 1985, Cardinal Mahony was appointed Archbishop of Los Angeles, and Pope John Paul II elevated him to Cardinal on June 28, 1991, making him the third Archbishop of Los Angeles to be created a Cardinal. In 1986, to better minister to the millions of Catholics in the Archdiocese, Cardinal Mahony created the 5 pastoral regions. In the 1990s, he oversaw the building of the Cathedral of Our Lady of Los Angeles, and which was dedicated in September 2002. Cardinal Mahony serves on a number of committees of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, including those on liturgy, pro-life activities, and migration and refugees. He was a member of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace and the Pontifical Council for the Pastoral Care of Migrants and Itinerants. He is presently on the Pontifical Council for Social Communications, the Prefecture for the Economic Affairs of the Holy See, and the Congregation for Eastern Churches. On February 27th, 2011, Cardinal Mahony reached his mandatory retirement age and was succeeded as Archbishop of Los Angeles by Archbishop Jose Gomez. Cardinal Mahony is known for his prophetic stances on topics of immigration, a topic which he intends to direct even more attention to during his retirement. The topic of this afternoon's lecture is Looking Back, Looking Forward, the Bishop's Ministry of Oversight. Please join me in welcoming Cardinal Mahony to Boston College.
Thank you very much. I couldn't help but notice on the blackboard during the introduction, I have no idea what that means. I guess there are students that know what that means, but I have no idea. That's way beyond me. The invitation to speak at Boston College as part of the series Grace and Commitment, the Vocations of Laity, Religious, and Ordained, has challenged me to reflect on the distinctive vocation of the bishop. I am grateful to Boston College's president, Father William Leahy, and to the staff of the Church in the 21st Century here at Boston College for the opportunity to do so. In reflecting on the distinctive vocation of the bishop, it is helpful to consider the root meaning of the term bishop. In whatever time or place, the bishop is the one who is called to exercise the ministry of oversight. My understanding of my own call and challenge, then, might be understood as vigilance, being alert, attentive to the vital forces, or, in the language of the Second Vatican Council, the signs of the times. In Signs of the Times involving human life, our ongoing history, the wider world, and specifically the life of the local church. As I have pondered over my own sense of call and the challenges that have been a part of it, a very simple question has emerged. If my ministry is principally that of oversight, what is it that I have seen as I look back over my years of service to the church as a bishop? What do I see now as I look to the challenges the bishop will likely face in the years ahead? In the first part, looking back. What one sees depends in no small measure on where one stands, as well as the position one assumes. I often remember the advice I was given shortly after my ordination to the priesthood for service in the Diocese of Fresno, which, for an Angelino from North Hollywood, was truly like a mission outpost. It was the pastor of the first parish to which I was assigned who told me, "The best thing for you to do is to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are." For me, this was easy. But he quickly added, "And then get out of the way." In my years of service as priest and bishop, I have come to see that this is the real challenge: how to exercise the ministry of pastoral leadership in a way that is truly collegial, inviting all in the local church to share in a vision of ecclesial life and mission. From where I stand, what I have seen is that the bishop is one who is called to teach, to sanctify, and to guide, first and finally as a member of the body of Christ, one who speaks from and to the communion of the church. It may be helpful to note that all too often we use the term people of God to refer to the lay faithful, often in juxtaposition to those ordained to the ministerial priesthood. While ordination does call one to a unique and indispensable, indeed essential ministry in the church, this is not well thought of as positioning oneself above or outside the people of God, but rather within a holy people. Through baptism and the sacramental life of the church, each one has her or his own proper share in a royal priesthood. From the beginning of my ministry, what I have seen is the suffering of so many people. When I was first ordained bishop, I chose as my episcopal motto to reconcile God's people. When I decided upon that motto, we were in the midst of incredible upheaval in the San Joaquin Valley with Cesar Chavez and his efforts to organize the grape workers. There was enormous bitterness anger and divisions. The great majority of both growers and workers were Catholic. Both sides presumed that the church would be on their side, not the other side. After that grueling battle for some 12 years, a little peace began to settle. I recall thinking at the end of those struggles that never in my life would I ever have to take so seriously my commitment expressed in those words to reconcile God's people, until the sexual abuse scandal broke in 2002. This has been far more difficult than the farm labor crisis of 1965 to 1977. When St. Paul calls us to the ministry of reconciliation in 1 Corinthians, I now understand that he is describing gritty and sometimes nasty human divisions and animosities. His expression sounds great on a little Bible bookmark, but living out the ministry of reconciliation, which I see as central to the call of the bishop, this bishop in North America, is extraordinarily challenging. More recently, the form this ministry has taken for me is meeting with the victims of sexual abuse, looking at them face to face, listening to their pain, and seeing the pain written in their faces, the scarring at the heart of their stories. What I have come to see, especially in the later years of my episcopal ministry, is that the body of Christ I am called and challenged to serve is a body still bearing wounds. In the months leading up to my retirement from active ministry, I once again found myself asking, where do I stand? What do I see from the place where I stand? After prayer and discernment, the answer emerged. I stand with the 11 million. In reflecting back on my years in ministry as a priest and as a bishop, I have come to see that so much of that ministry brought me in touch with immigrant peoples, regardless of how they came to this country. While growing up in the San Fernando Valley, I came in contact with those Mexican-American men and women who worked for my parents at their poultry processing plant. They became my friends. During my years as a seminarian at St. John's Seminary in Camarillo, several of us seminarians were able to accompany priests to the farm labor camps where Mass was offered for the braceros, the temporary farm workers, mostly from Mexico. After my ordination to the priesthood, I served in the San Joaquin Valley and was always deeply touched by the faith, traditions, and commitment to family on the part of countless immigrants across the valley, a large number of whom were involved in agriculture. Their hard work and sacrifices were evident at every turn. The efforts of Cesar Chavez to improve the salaries and working conditions of thousands of farm workers in California greatly inspired me. After being ordained bishop, my ministry continued with immigrants in the dioceses of Fresno and of Stockton. Again, I was attracted to these people because of their faith and love for the church. They were always anxious to help whenever asked, whether by assisting others in need or by lending a hand in the parish or the diocese. With my appointment as Archbishop of Los Angeles in 1985, this relationship expanded as Asian Pacific and other immigrant peoples from different parts of the world became part of my ministry as well. Over these many years, I have been constantly called and challenged by the words of Jesus, "For I was a stranger, and you welcomed me," echoing God's mandate to his people in the Old Testament. Over the years, immigrant peoples have become very dear to me, and Jesus continues to call me to walk with them on their journey. I intend to spend the coming months and years walking in solidarity with the 11 million immigrants who have come to the United States to improve their own lives and the life of our country, and to serve as an advocate on behalf of these voiceless millions. This brings me to another point. Looking back especially on my ministry as Archbishop of Los Angeles these past 25 years of my life. Perhaps because of my concern for immigrant peoples, what I have seen, especially in my Episcopal ministry in Los Angeles, is a church rich in diversity. Los Angeles is likely the most linguistically, culturally, racially, ethnically, economically, and religiously diverse metropolis in North America, perhaps in the world. To give one concrete example of this, on any given Sunday, Mass is celebrated in approximately 42 languages and dialects in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Trying to respond to such diversity has been one of the central challenges of my Episcopal ministry. Each time I enter the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels, I look and I see the cornerstone on which are engraved the words of the prophet Isaiah. "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples." When I look out on so many different people gathered in the cathedral for Sunday Eucharist, I wonder, how do we welcome all these people with all their gifts so that we, member for member, can be and build the body of Christ as a sacrament of reconciliation and peace in and to the world? What I see is vibrancy, movement, a people who in the main are looking and moving forward. In this, I see an expression in our own time and place of the words of the first Franciscans who brought the good news to the peoples of California. Siempre adelante, always going forward. Now, my second point, walking shoulder to shoulder. What have I seen as I have sought to move forward, walking shoulder to shoulder with this diverse and vibrant people? I have seen that the people need a vision, and that the bishop's task is to help the local church shape its vision, its understanding of ecclesial mission. In the years leading up to my retirement, I was often asked to express what I see for our future in the Archdiocese, to articulate my vision of where we are now and where we are moving. And my response over these past several years has been, my vision is the vision that emerged from our Archdiocesan Synod. But this vision did not fall from the sky. nor was it airlifted into our Archdiocesan Catholic Center or the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels over the course of the 3 years of our Archdiocesan Synod, the years 2000 to 2003. Seeds planted over many years of laboring together in the vineyard of Los Angeles were coming to flower in the months and years of the Synod. It is now our task to do what we can to assure that they will flourish by the Spirit's gift. The vision that emerged from the Synod, our vision, was given shape through a prolonged period of prayer, dialogue, discernment, and decision. It was not always easy to stay with the long and sometimes exhausting process of seemingly never-ending meetings and to bring it all to conclusion. But we walked shoulder to shoulder over those years. With the vision sometimes still in the making, we sought to discern the movement of the Spirit of God in human life, history, the world, and the church, so as to further the reign of God. As we worked together, I learned a little more about the ministry of oversight. This I can spell out in 3 points. First, a leader must have a clear vision of the enterprise or task at hand. In the case of the bishop, the task is one of teaching, sanctifying, and guiding all the members of the local church in such ways that respond to the specific pastoral needs of a particular local church in all its uniqueness and complexity. Second, the bishop must be able to share the vision in a clear and compelling way with colleagues and co-workers who together have a shared passion for this vision, as well as with those who are served by the vision. This entails much more than the leader leading and the followers following. It requires deep respect for the human person, a certain savoir-faire in the dynamics of human freedom and responsibility, so that the differing gifts of all may be brought to bear in serving the vision, in working for the reign of God in our midst. And third, the bishop must be able to spell out the vision and what is distinctive about it for others in the wider world, people who inhabit different worlds of meaning and value than those of us who profess faith in Jesus Christ and strive to live by his gospel. The bishop lives on a field on which all 3 of these dimensions must be at play, shaped through and through by the vision to which the bishop holds on, holds out, and holds up, so that others may live freely with, in, and from the vision, working to make the vision a reality. The bishop often struggles day by day with heavy administrative responsibilities, programming tasks, and fiscal constraints that are part and parcel of the enterprise. But so much more is called for from the bishop than being an effective administrator. Our vision is enshrined in the 6 pastoral initiatives that were endorsed by the delegates of our Archdiocesan Synod, men and women representing every sector of the Archdiocese in all its diversity. This 3-year process of prayer, dialogue, discernment, and decision concluded in September 2003 with the endorsement of the following, which are now particular law for our diocese. First, evangelization and the new evangelization. Second, establishing structures for participation and accountability. Third, ongoing education and formation, youth, young adults. Fourth, ministry and leadership, lay, consecrated life, ordained. Fifth, Eucharist and sacramental living. And sixth, social justice, living at the service of God's reign. To implement the 6 pastoral initiatives, to make the vision reality, we have established regional pastoral councils at the level of our 5 regions, as well as an archdiocesan pastoral council. Now, nearly 10 years since those synod days, there is a clear sense that there is so much yet to be done for its full implementation. Day by day, we would do well to pray the words of St. Francis of Assisi to his first followers, the first little brothers. Let us begin again today, Francis would say, for until now we've done nothing. In that same spirit, we must understand ourselves as inheritors of the legacy of the first Franciscans in California. Siempre adelante, always going forward. Looking back gives me the opportunity to reflect on the question of whether or not I have exercised my episcopal ministry in such a way as to make our vision a reality. Here I will draw attention to 5 characteristics I have sought to embody, especially in recent years. In turning attention to these, my principal aim is to provide a glimpse of how the ministry of oversight might be exercised most effectively in the future. First of those is collegiality. The bishop exercises his ministry best when he seeks always to spark the spirit of collegiality, drawing upon the resources and the wisdom of all who earnestly seek the truth of the gospel, of those who, member for member, make up the body of Christ in our own time and place. It is one thing to listen. It is quite another thing to learn and to change as a consequence. The bishop needs to be willing not only to listen, but to learn from others and to change when change is needed. What took place during the Archdiocesan Synod 2000-2003 is just one example of this. I recall vividly a synod of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles held in 1961. I was a seminarian at the time. The then Archbishop convoked the synod at St. Vibiana's Cathedral in Los Angeles in the presence of priests and priests only of the Archdiocese and some of us seminarians from St. John's Seminary. The synod opened and closed within about 5 minutes. And the Archbishop announced that I will now read all the conclusions from the synod. 50 years later, we know that it would be highly imprudent for a bishop to announce to his listeners, even and especially his priests and seminarians, what is to be done and how it is to be done from a list of agenda items. The bishop must recognize that each and every one is a co-worker, a colleague, a collaborator in service of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Second, beyond tolerance. The bishop must exercise respect, indeed reverence, for diversity. This is so much more than tolerance. When I arrived from Stockton to serve as the first native son Archbishop of Los Angeles, it was clear that Los Angeles was a bilingual archdiocese. In the course of my episcopal ministry, Los Angeles has become home to a vast array of peoples. Even while Spanish-speaking peoples constitute the largest number of Roman Catholics in the archdiocese, our local church is home to an astonishing diversity of people. Our synod proclamation was read not only in Spanish and English, but also in Tagalog, Vietnamese, Korean, Mandarin, and Cantonese. Still, some language groups remain unnamed and underrepresented in the synod. There is still so much work to be done so that our local church is truly a house of prayer for all peoples, growing in its understanding of itself as the body of Christ, at once intercultural and intercontinental. Fourth, liturgy and life. With so much discussion about the appearance of the new Roman Missal, I am concerned that we may be losing sight of the necessary connection, the reciprocal relationship between liturgy and life. I will have to leave to others the question of whether or not some important theological nuances have been lost in the new translation. My concern is how to translate the center of our Catholic life and faith, the Eucharist, into concrete action in the lives of our Catholic people, especially in matters of the justice which is at the heart of the reign of God. As I see it, the ministry of the bishop is to build up and to lead a truly Eucharistic church. This entails so much more than assuring good or liturgically correct celebrations of the Mass. It demands that those who receive the sacrament of the body and blood of the Lord recognize that the fruitful celebration of the sacrament requires that they in turn are to be and become the body of Christ, a sacrament of peace and reconciliation in and to the world. As his disciples, we live by word and sacrament. We seek the kingdom first above all else when we work in the here and now to safeguard and promote the dignity of the human person from conception to natural death, support the rights of workers, encourage the flourishing of the human person in relationship and community, opting for the poor, building solidarity among persons, nations, races, and classes, and caring for creation. To this must be added an ongoing commitment to forgiveness as a basis for a new world order. In his message for World Peace Day 2002 to the world's diplomats, John Paul II sums up his message in the lapidary phrase, "No peace without justice, and no justice without forgiveness." To this must be added the ongoing call to reconciliation, to which I have sought to give myself in selecting my episcopal motto, to reconcile God's people. Now, fifth, the church in the public square. In some church circles, Los Angeles was once thought of as a big backwater mission land, a sort of adolescent sibling of the East Coast dioceses of Baltimore, New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. Much has changed over the last 25 years. Because of our conviction about the inseparability of liturgy and life, worship and justice, we have recognized how important it is for the church to speak with a clear voice, addressing the pressing concerns and urgent demands of our age. Our voice is that of the gospel of Jesus Christ, echoed in the teachings of the church. The bishop must be utterly fearless in his exercise of his leadership, always willing to step up to the plate and speak the truth, whether it be on questions of workers' rights, the dignity of human life at every stage, but especially the life that is most helpless and vulnerable, and most recently, the need for justice for immigrants in this land. And finally, changing hearts and minds. A bishop is challenged to learn that hearts and minds are changed more by persuasion than by legislation and directives. Here I am reminded of the words of the late distinguished theologian Dr. Monica Hellwig, longtime professor at Georgetown University, and in her later years, president of the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities, who once remarked, "You can't throw truth at people in such a way that all they can do is duck." Especially in our time, the truth cannot be imparted by command. Exclamation points are no substitute for clear analysis and plausible arguments. The truth is found, or given and received, in the community's pool of wisdom as its members seek to discern the seeds of the Word and the vital force of the Spirit in human life, history, the world, and the church. This they do with the guidance of their bishop, the one who is charged with the ministry of oversight, the one who looks out and looks over, the life of the local church in unity and in charity. A good leader knows this. The main thing is to know the main thing, and to keep the main thing the main thing. This is something I have tried to do in the ministry of oversight I have exercised in my years of service as bishop. The ecclesial vision we have shaped, in which we share in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, has emerged as we have walked shoulder to shoulder in the service of the reign of God. This, of course, is the main thing. Keeping the main thing entails that we always move forward, siempre adelante, while keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, at the same time seeing in one another members of a royal priesthood, a holy people, the body of Christ. And here I would like to mention our annual Religious Education Congress, held out in Anaheim. It's the biggest thing like it probably in the world. Some of you have been at it, some of you have spoken at it. And we have about 40,000 people over the course of 4 days. And it is an amazing time of grace for everyone, because a lot of what I've spoken about here is where those seeds of the Spirit really come forth, and a renewal of that collegial collaborative effort emerges. Now, looking forward, as I look ahead, one matter that I see as calling for particular attention, one which I find is a real challenge personally, is embedded in the 5th pastoral initiative of our Archdiocesan Synod, Eucharist and Sacramental Living. For me, the question is this: how do we remain a truly Eucharistic church with an increasing number of Catholics and a decreasing number of priestly vocations? This question involves much more than simply assuring that a certain number of Masses are celebrated in each parish. Is it enough to say that we will remain a truly Eucharistic church if we guarantee at least one Sunday Mass in each parish in a diocese or archdiocese? I have come to see that it calls for at least this, but so much more. Being and becoming a truly Eucharistic church entails much more than assuring a certain number of ritual celebrations. It is rather more about the quality of liturgical celebration and about the life of a community being faithful not only to the supper command, do this in memory of me, but also to the diaconal mandate to do unto others as I have done for you. In order to assure celebration of the Eucharist, there is an increasing tendency in our country to rely on priests from other countries. Here again, I'm reminded of the words of the bishop who ordained me to the priesthood for the Diocese of Fresno. The largest seminary in this part of California is the Greyhound Bus Depot. That's where our priests came from. The number of priests from elsewhere in some parts of this country has continued to soar. The trend shows no sign of abating. This poses, in my opinion, very serious challenges. It is common to hear complaints on the part of parishioners about priests from other countries who cannot communicate clearly, especially when preaching. But this is only part of the challenge. The much deeper concern is the fact that these men come to the United States with seminary training that is quite different from ours in seminaries in the U.S. Depending on their country of origin, the ecclesiology, the liturgical formation, and not least of all, the approach to ministry of these newly arrived priests is often at variance with those of the local church they have come to our country to serve. As I see it, it is not sufficient to provide newly arrived priests with orientation days or weeks, nor is it adequate to offer workshops on various topics of multiculturalism. These are not enough to help newly arrived priests move into a new ecclesial reality and find one's place within it, not as a sacramental provider, but one who is recognized as a pastoral leader in the local church. In the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, our efforts to encourage and foster priestly vocations have in recent years shifted. Rather than looking to the Archdiocesan Director of Vocations as the one who is principally responsible in this area, we're looking to many persons, often our lay leaders at the parish level, the deanery level, and the level of our 5 pastoral regions to do some of the heavy lifting in terms of recruitment. This is in addition to a priest in each region who serves as the principal contact person for a man who is considering a priestly vocation. While we will likely continue to welcome some priests from other countries, we recognize that without our Catholic culture in the Catholic Church in the United States, which was particularly strong in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, we must look to new places, to those settings wherein our own ecclesial reality is being lived, our parishes, to find the pastoral leadership for the life of our local church. For the sacramental life of the church is centered on the Eucharist, whose celebration is to reflect the many gifts and roles exercised in the local church. The ordained priest exercises his ministry by calling all the faithful to its celebration, by affirming their baptismal call within it, and by centering the life of the community around Christ in memory and in hope through the gift of the one Spirit given to all the baptized. In understanding properly the ministry of the ordained priest, what must be underlined is the gift of presiding over the life of a community within the local church and leading the community in its prayer. The priest must know how to evangelize, to catechize, to preach, to pray, to celebrate, to discern, but above all, he must know how to draw all the baptized together into communion and mutual service. And in conclusion, in looking back over my years of episcopal ministry, I have come to recognize the crucial importance of a vision to guide the life of a people. We are reminded in the book of Proverbs that without a vision, the people perish. In trying to keep our ecclesial vision alive, especially in my service as Archbishop of Los Angeles, I have looked for assistance from those involved in the life of our Catholic colleges and universities more rather than less. Not only have I looked to theologians, but to others of diverse disciplines in the colleges and university in our local church. The bishop can only be enriched in his ministry by such initiatives as this Center for the Church in the 21st century. So I extend my deep thanks to you, not only because your efforts are pastorally expedient, just as much, if not more, I appreciate your contribution when it takes the form of the long and painful, often lonely work of research and writing, teaching students, and preparing them for service in various fields of endeavor. Your work, your ministry, is vital to the life of the church and the wider world. Indeed, we are so much the poorer without the vision which lies at the heart of a Catholic university such as Boston College, the one and same vision which lies at the heart of the bishop's ministry of oversight. Thank you very much.